Did you know that feeding a family of 7 can cost more than a mortgage, and making those meals from scratch can eat up over 500 hours in your kitchen per year? Ouch, right? I felt the same way when going over the statistics. But today I'm going to show you how I bring both time and money back into line and show you a few quick, easy pantry meals. So let's take this one all the way from pantry to plate. It is Pantry Challenge season here at my home, which means I'm doing everything I can to make what we're eating instead of stopping by the store for last-minute convenience items or anything of the sort. So today I'm going to bring you along and show you a few recipes that I've tweaked and that I've really done some research on how I can cut down on the time that I'm spending on those scratch-made goods that I'm making at home, just like the pizza crust and hamburger buns that I'm going to show you throughout today's episode. Now, I have recipes that I've used for these specific items, and they take sometimes 4 hours, 5 hours because of rise times, and it turns out with a beautiful product. But what about the days when you want to eat hamburgers in 30 minutes and you don't have buns? Can we do that? Can we save money on that and make a quality product that everyone will enjoy while not spending all day in the kitchen? That was the personal challenge that I gave myself, not only for my own family, but for those of you out there who just don't have the time and are not interested in those long commitments at home in the kitchen. So today I want to share with you a pizza crust that cuts hours off of the normal time that it takes me to make a crust that my whole family will love. Now, just as a side note, before we jump in, any of the recipes that I'm talking about today, I will make sure to go ahead and link down in the comments. So if you're looking for all of the specifics, make sure to go down there and check it out. Now, when I'm talking fast and I want something done without waiting all day, sourdough is definitely out. So if you are looking for some sourdough recipes, today is absolutely not your day. I am going to be using an instant rapid rise yeast, so I don't even have to wait for that to proof, which saves another 5 to 10 minutes over the entire process. So today's first recipe is going to be a homemade pizza. I'm making one that's going to be a regular crust and then 2 that are going to be a thinner crust style. We have officially crossed the point here at our house where I can feed my family with just 2 regular sized pizzas. So taking that second full crust recipe and cutting it in half will leave me with 2 thin crust recipes in addition to that one regular crust, which everybody seems to love. Now, when it comes to pizza toppings, this is really just personal preference, of course, but we tend to do a supreme, and if there are 1 or 2 items that the kids don't like, they can pick it off. But for the most part, all of my kids have always grown up eating supreme pizza, and we don't get any pushback on it. But if you are looking to make this extra budget friendly, maybe skip the pepperoni and just use some leftover meat that you have in your refrigerator, or stick with veggies only. Now, check out this tomato. I know I've talked about this a few times lately here on this channel as well as my hometown homestead channel, but these orange accordion tomatoes are absolutely gorgeous and the most prolific tomato in my garden right now, even though I only planted 2 of those and I planted 5 or 6 of some others. Not only are they beautiful to look at when they're whole in your hand, but also when you're cutting them up. And I think that's part of really loving the kitchen, is taking the time to realize that the absolute beauty of the food that comes from nature is worth taking a moment to stop and appreciate. So if you're in the kitchen and you're just running through as fast as you can, trying to get things done, stop for a second, enjoy your tomato, or I love looking at red cabbage or several other vegetables. So just find something that will inspire you and help to take your mind off the time that you're putting into the kitchen if this isn't something that you typically enjoy. Now, the overall secret to a super fast pizza here at my house is a hot oven, and I do not have a fancy pizza oven. I just turned my own regular convection oven up to 500 degrees, regular bake, so the convection isn't even necessary, and I preheated my baking stones inside. Now, my baking stones are oval because I can fit 2 side by side really easily inside my oven. If you have round, that works too, but I don't have a regular pizza peel, so making do with a cutting board here on parchment paper, which actually did a really, really efficient job of getting the job done. One thing I am cautious about is the type of parchment paper I use. I like it to be a natural, unbleached parchment. And I also find that when I'm getting it cut in the pre-cut sheets, then it helps me to have a more uniform size and I don't rip it or waste any extra. When you are doing something like this, it is a good idea to cut your edges down if you have some overlap, just to prevent it from getting too hot or maybe catching on fire inside your oven. I would love to say I've never done that, and I'm just talking from, something I saw online, but truth is I totally burned up a pan of brownies with parchment one time, so be careful on how tall that paper is sticking out around the edges. Now, once you slide the pizza into your very hot oven onto the stones that are already warm, this comes together really fast. So I believe the recipe says 10 to 12 minutes. Just looking for a nice golden brown crust, and make sure that you pull it out before the bottom gets too done. The first time I made this recipe, I did go a little bit far with one of the crusts. It was actually the cheese stick crust, which is what I'm working on right now. And while the overall recipe was delicious, the crust on the bottom was a little bit tougher than I tend to like it. Now, this can be made with all-purpose flour, and that is actually what I made when I did this recipe the first time, because I wanted to trial it to make sure I liked how fast it worked, how well the temperature was, and all of those sorts of things. But today I'm making this with a freshly milled wheat just to increase the nutritional value here at home. If you don't have a wheat grinder, no worries. Anything that you're making from scratch in your own kitchen is going to be so much healthier than if you purchase it from the store, that the type of wheat that you're using really is negligible in the overall added benefits of health as well as money. Making these pizzas at home saves a ton of money over grabbing them at the store, even the pre-made ones that just aren't cooked. This is really a huge benefit to be able to just whip up something like this at home. And if you're just making one pizza, you can cut your time to top by a third of what you're seeing me do here, as well as all of the ingredients that go into it, making it even more economical. The average savings when making it at home versus even purchasing a take and bake style pizza from a grocery store or another pizza chain is around 40% just for making it at home. Considering you have the option to do that in under an hour, this actually took around 30 minutes to put together. That is really a big win, because by the time you drive down to pick up your takeout or whatever you're doing, you're going to spend that same amount of time and you're just saving a tremendous amount of money. So if I feed my crew pizza twice a month, that would average out to about $150 a year in savings just on pizza night alone. So I consider that a huge win in both time and money. Now, when I am feeding my family, not only am I a stickler for cost, but I'm also a stickler for quality. That is one of the reasons that I have enjoyed all of the boxes and the subscription that I have to ButcherBox. Now, if you're not familiar with ButcherBox, I am going to take just a moment to tell you about them because they happen to be the sponsor of today's video. Now, if you're new to the idea of ButcherBox and not sure what it is, I'm going to take just a minute to give you some details. ButcherBox is an online subscription-based service that delivers meat straight to your door, all frozen and ready to go. You can pick from a variety of cuts, including beef, pork, chicken, and seafood, and it's all super, super high quality. The cool thing about ButcherBox is you can customize your box, or you can let them pick for you. And I do have a quick tip on how to get the most of your box. If you want to save money, grab the large box and space it out. You actually save a lot of money by doing the large box every 2 months instead of the small box monthly. So I think that's a great tip for anyone looking to get the most out of their ButcherBox and high quality meat delivered straight to your door. Currently, ButcherBox has an awesome promotion going on for new members. Anyone who signs up will receive their choice of top sirloin, chicken breast, salmon, or ground beef free for a year now through the 14th. If you're watching this past then, there is a new promo up for you as well. Make sure to check the link down below. And now let's jump back to this recipe because you are going to love what I'm doing with this chicken. Now, the recipe itself said that this should be done over on the stove, and I was just thinking, listen, I'm in a hurry. I have kids and things going on, and it's summer, and I just don't want to do it. So I took this chicken and seasoned it up, and I'm putting it in the air fryer. It's going in for 8 minutes at 375, and I am not even going to look at it or think about it again until the timer goes off. The other super cool thing about that is all of the mess is contained, and I can just move on to the sides that go along with the dish instead of worrying about the chicken or any splattering or anything of the sort. So for me, anytime I can substitute something like that to the air fryer, it's a great idea. Now, over on the stove, I'm going to throw together some potato gnocchi. Now, if you have not tried this before, I highly recommend it. It is awesome because it is shelf stable. You can throw it in a drawer and pull it out anytime you need a quick, delicious meal that's a little bit different than the normal, like taco bowl, hamburger, kind of old standby recipes. So this adds a great variety for us, and you can use it in many applications. Today, I'm going to brown it up on the stove. I put a couple tablespoons of oil in the bottom of the pan, and I'm just giving it a nice brown. Now, I am doubling the recipe, so I'm doing it in batches just because I want to make sure that all of it gets to the bottom of the pan and gets that nice, even browning instead of having some that's more or less done. Now, once it's browned, I'm putting a pint of chicken stock in, and that is going to serve as the liquid to kind of add the juice to the actual sauce. In with the chicken stock, it is just cream cheese, salt and pepper to taste, and I'm going to put in some broccoli so we have some vegetable in there as well. This recipe is actually written without the chicken, so if you just want to make that gnocchi, you can. I just felt like adding the protein to it added a really nice punch and kind of made the recipe a little bit more well-rounded as a one-pot meal for my crew. The other thing you're about to see is while I call it a one-pot meal, I only cut up about half of this chicken. I always look at the ButcherBox packages and I think that I'm going to need more than just one section of the chicken. But when you get one pack of chicken tenders, it's actually 3 individual vacuum sealed packages that are 1 pound each. So I completely could have got away with this and turned that into 3 meals instead of 1 because of the way that I'm stretching it. But as a result, I'm just cutting up half of this chicken and the rest I'm going to put in the fridge and use at a later point in the week. Now, anytime I am in the kitchen and my crew is not outside playing, there's always questions or somebody needing help. And we started back to school this week, so I'm teaching my little one some cursive in between the recipe. They're really enjoying it and it's a lot of fun, but it is really nice to be able to work in sometimes their help right around the kitchen when we have everything else going on at home. Now you can see I did go ahead and saute up some broccoli to throw in. It was frozen. I did decide to go ahead and blanch it for just a couple minutes to make it a little bit kind of a tender, crisp texture. And once it was done and tossed in with the gnocchi, everything was ready to go. This is about a 15-minute start to finish, especially if you're not moving a camera all around your kitchen to try to capture it. So in a pinch, I would highly recommend this, and definitely don't sleep on air frying your chicken. It will save you time, make cleanup easier, and be a family favorite, I promise. Everyone will love it. Now, this last meal that I'm going to share with you today is something that I actually made here on the channel back in January, or at least the base of it is. We're going to make a homemade sloppy joe, and I'm making it with a 40-minute bun recipe. Now, the recipe is named 40-minute bun. I will make sure to link it down below. I think you could do it in 30. Again, without the camera, but also with using instant yeast instead of one you have to proof. And the notes of the recipe actually do reflect that. You could shorten up the time just with the specific choice you make for your yeast. But if you don't have that rapid instant yeast, you can use a different one. It's just going to take you a few more minutes. The thing I like most about these is that they do skip the proofing step completely, which if you're familiar with bread making, you would think it would turn out so dense and not be delicious at all. But that is totally the opposite of what happens with this recipe. So I do recommend giving it a try. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but this is actually the second time I made it. Again, the first time I made it with regular all-purpose just to make sure I liked the base of the recipe because I knew I was going to tweak it when I started to use my whole freshly milled wheat, just because sometimes I need more water or the weights are a little bit different. And as you can see here, my little helper is all too excited to see herself on the monitor that I use to kind of frame up my shots. So she's watching herself dance and waiting for me to give her a little bit of dough. That is the Play-Doh. I mean, if you think about it, that's the original Play-Doh, right? So my girls love to come in and get a little bit of dough and they play with it for around 30 minutes while I'm actually cooking. And then it disappears, which is my favorite part of it because I will confess, I totally hate Play-Doh. I hate it. There's always just, it's a mess. You know what I mean if you have kiddos at home. So Play-Doh's gone. This is our Play-Doh. But the quick thing here is I'm making this into 12 buns instead of the 8 that the recipe calls for. we have little mouths. We have a lot of people that want a lot of food. And when I can take a bun that's usually huge and turn it into something that's more slider size, that is a huge hit for my family. It's also nice because I can get 12 buns out of the same recipe that 8 is typically received out of. And that means that making this one batch of 40-minute buns is actually going to serve us for 2 whole meals. So anytime you can do something like that and throw the buns in the freezer to pull out at a later date, total win, highly recommend. Just as another added benefit here over the health benefits, when you make your buns at home, you save about 50%. The products or the ingredients that go into making bread are very basic and very cheap. We're talking flour, yeast, water, or milk, just depending. Sometimes sugar, butter, oil, salt. But the total for a dozen is around $1.80. And if you buy them at the store, you're going to spend anywhere from $3 to $6, just depending on what you're getting. So I love to go ahead and make something like that at home. I know when you're thinking in the grand scheme of things about saving, $1.50 or $3, it's not that much. But if you consider percentage base, if you're cutting this in half, and if you continually do that over your entire menu, you're saving so much money over the month and over the year that it's really worth the extra 40 minutes that these buns take to make. So again, recipe down below, don't sleep on it. Now, what I did here in this specific morning was when we got up in the morning to start our schoolwork, I didn't know what was going to be for dinner, but I knew that we would likely be able to make something quickly out of ground beef. So I took 2 pounds of frozen ground beef, put them in my Instapot with about a cup of water for 18 minutes at high pressure, and then I let it stay on the keep warm feature. So if I needed it for lunch or dinner, the meat would already be basically ready to go. That's why when you saw it, it looked like it was a little bit dried out on top. I did have liquid in there, but I let it set for quite a while. So at the end, when I pulled this off, I drained out the liquid, and then I'm just adding my sloppy Joe mixture straight to my pot. Now I'm adding 1 pint of sloppy Joe mix to 2 pounds of burger. We didn't want it super sloppy, and the flavor was perfect just the way it was. So highly do recommend, even if you're not going to make your sloppy Joe mix at home, you can buy it at the store. It's still delicious, and it's a great quick meal. Now, this is one of my favorite summertime sides of all time, and if I could actually jar it, I would, in a way that it would last all winter, but it doesn't. These are refrigerator pickles, and I cannot stress just the amazing flavor of them enough. If you're looking for that recipe, it is actually in my video that will come out next weekend on my other channel, which is the Hometown Homestead, where I'm working on easy, simple food preservation that doesn't require any kind of big equipment or a long time in the kitchen. So if you're looking for that refrigerator pickle recipe, head on over to the Hometown Homestead, hit subscribe, and you will see it next week when it comes out. Now, I have shared some of my quick and easy, simple recipes that cut out all of the time that goes into baked goods. But if you have some other favorite budget-friendly, time-saving hacks, make sure to leave them down below. And if you are new here and have not subscribed yet, make sure to do so. This new channel is climbing in viewership, and I could not thank you all enough for stopping by to check it out. Thanks for stopping by, friends, and I'll see you back soon.